everyone? Yeah? Woo! Right, we're going to start, that's better, with a question that's going to test your observational skills. Middle of the afternoon, a little bit tired, aren't you? So I'm going to start with this, all right? What do these 4 pictures have in common? Oh, yeah, you're stealing my thunder. Yeah. Yes, they are all wearing Dr. Martens boots. From old school punks, we've got a preppy girl, we've got Matt Dillon from 90s slacker film Singles, and we've got Olivia Rodrigo. Yep, decades apart, different expressions, same boots. And yes, eagle-eyed at the front, I'm wearing my DM boots. Woo! Right, when I was 14, I lived in my Doc Martens. Right, and that was back in the day when slipping into someone's DMs literally meant trying on their boots. It was a simpler time. It really was. But I'm still wearing mine, and Dr. Martens are my favourite UK brand because they are iconic, right? Disruptive, culturally relevant, cool, nostalgic, consistent. I could go on, right? We could go on and on. And so I'm mentioning them because we're here today to talk about some of these very themes, right? Consistency, disruption, culture, and how Britain's biggest brands are having to adapt to these in the face of the challenges or the headwinds that Helen mentioned. Because, let's face it, right? The UK, a little bit divided at the moment, isn't it? Yeah, politically, socially, economically, bit of a shit show, isn't it? Right? Just saying how it is. But when the chips are down, we like to hark back to the past, don't we? When things felt a little bit better. So what we are seeing is, amidst all of this uncertainty, cool Britannia is making a comeback. In the 90s, it was all Britpop, Spice Girls, Kate Moss, right? But now it's being reimagined. Oasis are back, as we've heard, through Martin's very expensive tickets. Sorry, Martin. All right. We've got Netflix show, Too Much, painting Britain in a really kind of cool way. The Lionesses are riding high. Topshop is back. Remember Topshop? And yes. And once again, we've got Olivia Rodrigo normalising the fact that Brits love a bit of daytime drinking. Yeah. And Colin the Caterpillar. So we've got our M&S friends down there. Woo! Right? So in this increasingly kind of divided world, right, one thing has not changed. And that is that having a strong brand is the biggest insulation against all of the crap, right, that the world's throwing at you. And our strong brand portfolio, which is the line at the top, I think it's yellow, I don't know what colour it is over there, but it's yellow on the big screen, right? Our strong brand portfolio, which is based on a mixture of financial data and brand equity data, it outperforms, right, the MSCI World Index and the S&P 500, and both of those portfolios are generated solely using financial data. So you can see the power of brand. Now, not only do our strong brands grow faster, but they also recover quickly, more quickly, from economic crises. And in fact, brand equity is contributing more and more as a proportion of overall company value, okay? Globally, brand equity now contributes on average 33% of a company's value. But in the UK, that's 4% lower. Now, 4% doesn't sound like a lot, does it, between you and me? But the numbers that we're talking about, that actually represents $10 billion that UK brands are leaving on the table, right? Which begs the question then, how are we doing? We were going to see the top 75, but we haven't. But let's just talk about what's going on, okay? I'm going to start with the headline, which is, hello. Oh dear. There we go. There was a drum roll. Didn't even know it was coming. Our UK top 75, right, so the ranking that you've just not seen, right, our biggest brands are back in growth for the first time after 3 years of decline. I think that's good news, everyone. Yes, right? Good news. We were down 5% last year and 14% the year before. And this year, we're up 8%, okay? Now, I'm glad you've all clapped because I'm going to sort of bring the tone down just a little bit because we're not going to have a street party just yet. Because let's look at what's happening globally, right? UK might be in turnaround phase. We're in growth again, but our global top 100 brands are pulling away. Their growth is accelerating. They were up 20% last year, and they're up 29% this year. And this leads us to a slightly awkward situation that we did predict would happen back in 2019. Not saying I told you so, but there are now no longer any UK brands in the global top 100, okay? And you might be sitting there going, well, that's just because there's lots of, tech brands in the top 100 and we don't really kind of do that sort of thing in the UK that much. Well, yes, there are a lot of American and Chinese brands in the top 100, but there are also lots of brands from European markets like Germany, Spain, France, Italy, Sweden, through brands like IKEA, Mercedes, L'Oreal, Spotify, and my favorite global brand, Adidas. I think they're in the house today. There we go. Right, so why are UK brands off the global pace? What's happening? Well, we've heard already today, haven't we, that brands grow by being meaningfully different to more people. And brands that are meaningfully different can command 5 times the penetration of brands that are not meaningfully different. And the reality is, sorry to say, but in the UK, less than half, so only 47% of the UK's biggest brands are more meaningfully different than their competitors, okay? And that number globally is 70%. So 70% of global brands are more meaningfully different. So we can start to see, can't we, why global brands are pulling away, that acceleration. But not only do meaningfully different brands grow more or grow faster, right, but they are also better able to command and justify a higher price point. So it's also no surprise then that less than half, so 45% of British brands are struggling to justify their price. Not great, is it, in the current climate where, people are cutting back? So if it's not meaningful difference and kind of brand-led growth, why is the UK up 8%? What's happening? Well, it's financial services, okay? Financial services, UK heartland sector, okay, is in huge growth. 2 years ago, financial services as a category was down 5%. This year, it's up a whopping 30%. Every single financial services brand is in double-digit growth. And now we're not saying that there isn't some amazing activation from financial services. We saw it earlier with Nationwide, didn't we? And we've seen lots of it elsewhere, with Monzo, kind of Barclays, HSBC, right? But that huge swing that we've seen, it can't be fully attributed to brand building. There's definitely some kind of inflation and market factors at play. And actually, if we take financial services out of the equation, so remove those brands from the ranking, that growth reduces from 8% to 2%, which puts us even more off the global pace. So what can we learn? What can UK brands learn from global brands, given this kind of disparity that we're seeing? Well, Global Brands E turns 20 this year. Can you believe it? 20. So we've got 20 years of evidence around how brands grow and what it takes to really thrive and not just survive. So let's have a look. And what we found out is that over the last 20 years, right, it's disruption and consistency that are the 2 biggest drivers of meaningfully different growth, okay? Now, when I say disruption, or first of all, I should add as well, that it feels like there's a bit of a tension, doesn't there, between disruption and consistency, but both are needed. It's very much an and not an or. So if we take disruption, disruption is responsible for 71% of the growth that we've seen in our global top 100 over the last 20 years. And by disruption, we mean, challenging norms, pushing boundaries, finding new space, shaking things up, either in your category or in a different category, or even creating a whole new category, right? Now, consistency, on the other hand, okay, if you disrupt without being consistent, then it's kind of a bit like sort of undifferentiated chaos. Because whilst you're disrupting, you've got to make sure that your brand DNA goes on that journey with you. So consistency is all about clarity, it's about stability, and it's about recognizability. And as Dom mentioned in his session earlier, brands that are more consistent have 111% growth advantage. So those two things, super important. But they're not static, right? It's not something that you just kind of do once. If you get complacent within each of these, then your growth will stall. Disruption is not something that you just do once, tick the box, I've done that now, I've done my bit of disruption, I can move on. It's a mindset, right? You've got to disrupt over and over to maintain that relevance. And equally, consistency is not about doing nothing. It's not about going, well, I've achieved my strong brand, now I can just put my feet up. No, right? You've got to make sure that whilst your brand has a clear identity, you've got to flex the articulation of that identity as culture evolves, or you will lose relevance. So let's look at disruption. And let's go on to the bonnet. So what we're seeing at the moment is that brands are disrupting in 3 key ways. And what's important here is that we're not talking about innovation. People think that disruption is innovation, but actually it's so much more than that. And brands that are doing really well at the moment, that are disrupting, are doing so because they've got a point of view on kind of those big conversations that are happening out there, culturally and across social media. As we've seen earlier with creators, they're finding kind of new platforms, new audiences, new communities to tap into. And they're also partnering with the right brands and the right people in order to drive their brand's timeliness and relevance. So let's look at some examples. You've all had lunch, right? Good. Bon appetit. Anybody out there know what a mukbang is? Who's familiar with a mukbang? Yes, lots of you. Excellent. So for those of you that don't know, okay, a mukbang it's a kind of Korean-led trend where people eat often sort of messy food live in front of an audience on social media. To me, because I'm old, it seems quite voyeuristic. To my 11-year-old, it's apparently very cool, and it's an antidote to the epidemic of loneliness that obviously Javi mentioned earlier in the day, and it's about eating alone but through community. Why the hell am I talking about mukbangs? Well, because they were the inspiration for the genius activation that we've seen from Mexican fast food restaurant chain Chipotle, right? They are a new entry into our global top 100 this year, disrupted the fast food industry through their focus on honest ingredients, clarity around kind of the kitchen processes, right? And they've got 21 restaurants in the UK, and they're growing fast. But in order to expand their awareness and demand for their brand in the UK, they partnered with TikTok. I can see Nora from TikTok going, yeah. They partnered with TikTok famous British makeup brand Wonderskin, okay? And you're probably thinking, why? Like, what's the benefit of that? Okay, so Chipotle make burritos, right? Burritos often feature in mukbangs. Creators, when they're doing their mukbang thing, they often moan that their lipstick comes off. Wonderskin are famous for their smudge-proof lip stain. And so you crunch the two together and you get Lipotle.
I'm going to be testing this lip stain to see if it's truly guac-proof. Chipotle and Wonderskin teamed up together to make the cutest, oh my god, it's green. This lip stain right here, the perfect shade, it's giving brat. Yes. And my favorite part right here is peeling it off. Oh my God, it's so satisfying. The prettiest pink that's transfer proof. You're kidding. Now comes the fun part. I'm going to be testing it. And let's be so freaking for real right now. This is the only acceptable chip to guac ratio. By the end of this, we're going to know if this is actually going to be guacamole proof. And it is approved.
Who doesn't want their lipstick to be giving brat? Although I said that to my child and she was like, Mummy, brat is so last year. So, you're welcome. Let's move on, right? Who do we think is the most culturally relevant hotel brand in the UK? I'll give you a clue. It's not who you think it is. Well, I don't think it is. It's Hilton. Yes, I know. Right? It's not just cool challenger disruptor brands doing the disrupting. Hilton, obviously been around for 100 years or so, right? They are emerging as a core source of disruption, and they also entered the global top 100 brands for the first time this year. They have been doubling down on digital. Hilton heiress, Paris Hilton, has featured heavily on TikTok alongside other creators who've really helped to bring to life their For the Stay campaign. But what I want to focus on right now is something else that Hilton have done that is really different, okay? Oh, I meant to mention as well that Vibe, so the Vibe that we were talking about earlier, our metric for cultural relevance, Hilton are the most culturally vibrant brand in the UK. More culturally vibrant than Airbnb and also Travelodge, who are in the UK top 75, right? So it's because of their presence on TikTok, but also because they have done something other hotel brands have not done. They've partnered with gaming platform Roblox in order to really tap in to that younger, kind of cooler, sort of edgier audience. And they've created virtual Hilton hotels in Paris Hilton's world in Roblox, right, on the metaverse. And her world is called Slivingland. I know, it's a lot to get your head around. It blows my mind. And you can earn real-life Hilton loyalty points through staying in the virtual hotel. Shall we have a look?
Hilton honors slays.
Obsessed.
Points for a free stay? Yes, please.
Upgrade.
Loves it.
All these perks. We're sliving.
Totally sliving. I said that right?
Yeah.
When you want the celebrity treatment, no matter who you are, it matters where you stay.
That's hot.
Totally.
Hilton honors. Hilton, for the stay.
Apparently sliving, in case you didn't know, I totally did not have to Google this. Sliving is a mashup between slay, which I know I'm not allowed to say as a Gen X person, according to Jamie, slay and living. So there you go. But we've said, haven't we, that disruption can't be a one-off, right? It's got to be ongoing. So I want to really kind of celebrate a masterclass in consistent disruption from global brand Aldi and what they have managed to do to UK grocery over the last sort of 15, 20 years, right? When they arrived in the 90s, it was like, well, what's this? It's all a bit new, it's cheap, but it's a bit foreign, isn't it? And we don't really like change in the UK, and we didn't really know what to make of it. Took us a while, didn't it? I've got our friends at Aldi over there, they're nodding. You probably didn't know what to make of it either. But they've done I'm going to focus on 5 core disruptive things that they've done over the last 20 years to really kind of raise the game and change the face of UK grocery. Right, in the noughties, they launched their specially selected range. So they took the focus away from just value, but really introduced the notion of quality into the mix. Then we had the Like Brands Only Cheaper campaign, which showed people that there wasn't a compromise. It wasn't too good to be true. They could get what they were buying before, but at a cheaper price. Who doesn't want that? Then they also geniusly launched, right, the middle aisle, the formerly known as Special Wise, but everybody just calls it the middle aisle, don't they? I once went in for some barbecue meat and came out with some sea shoes, and they are still going strong. But we love a bargain, don't we? We love a rummage and a bargain, and really tapped into that kind of British trend. Nobody else was doing that. Kevin the Carrot made an appearance, thinking about 2016, 2017, and it really put Aldi in the spotlight as a brand that a serious contender for Christmas, the core shopping period in the UK. You could do your whole Christmas shop at Aldi. It wasn't just for novelty top-ups. And fast forward to now, they're still doing cool, disruptive things, but on a local level. And I love this. So when Oasis, I keep talking about Oasis, but when Oasis played this summer in Manchester, Aldi changed the name of the store to reflect the northern pronunciation. All the northerners are going to kill me, but I'm going to try it. Aldi. You can shoot me later. So, global brands killing it, right? What's happening to UK in terms of disruption? Now, it's probably not surprising, isn't it, given we've seen, we're not growing as much as we might like, that when it comes to disruption in the UK, our disruptor brands are not doing enough to generate either short or long-term growth. And we've actually seen a 19% drop in disruptor brand value over the last sort of 6 years. So that kind of breakthrough disruption isn't really scaling up into the UK's top 75, and those classic or legacy disruptor brands from before aren't maintaining that disruption. So overall, we're losing value. Let's look at a few brands that are in the top 75, but feel slightly less disruptive than they might have been. So 3, right? Still big, huge. They were pioneers of 3G when that was new. The first to do video calls, right? But they've merged now with Vodafone. Obviously brilliant news, but they are now very much one of the establishment. They're no longer the kind of cheeky disruptor that they first were. Let's take Innocent, right? Formed by a few guys at a festival. A real kind of breakthrough story, all about philanthropy and real ingredients. They got bought by Coke, which was brilliant in terms of being able to scale their offer. But arguably, whilst they've still driven by purpose, they are less radical than they used to be. They don't have that same disruptive edge. And then lastly, Brewdog, right? The indie darlings of craft beer. But I think they're a great example of disruption without the consistency bit. They went a bit too punk. Some of their activation felt tone deaf in terms of reinforcing kind of gender stereotypes, transphobia, and they didn't really have kind of the consistency and the brand clarity to back it up. It all felt a bit chaotic. They've lost their B Corp status, and it feels like right now they're more in recovery than they are kind of disruptors. So what happens when you get out disrupted? Let's look at an example. So Just Eat, huge brand. They're in the top 75. They were the first online food delivery platform to reach the UK, before Deliveroo, before Uber Eats. And they're still growing because the category's growing. But what we've seen is that they have been out-disrupted by Uber Eats, who've come in and they've now got a higher share of delivery occasions than Just Eat. So what happened? Well, did somebody say Just Eat was a hugely successful platform? Cultural icon Snoop Dogg did absolute wonders, but then they badged the same campaign with Christina Aguilera, Katy Perry, and currently with Craig David. And, do they really have the same star power and cultural relevance as Snoop Dogg? Not really. And in the same time period, Uber Eats came in with a really clear category entry point. Tonight, I'm eating. That moment when you make that decision, they're there, they're in your face. And they also used cultural icons like Mark Hamill and Patrick Stewart. So what happened was that Just Eat saw that first mover advantage, that breakthrough disruption, not really kind of pay off in the longer term. So there's not millions of great examples of disruptor brands, but some of our really established UK brands are showing us how it's done. There are some real kind of good news stories. We've heard this one already today, so I'm only going to touch on it. Maureen from Pinterest, right, has already talked about the partnership with Dove and how they retrained the algorithm to kind of spill out sort of more diverse images around beauty, right? But I think it's just really good to highlight the fact that Dove used their consistent long-term platform of real beauty to disrupt a cultural conversation that's happening. So it's a real kind of balance between sort of timely and timelessness, which is what we were obviously talking about today. You weren't expecting this to come up, were you? Yeah, probably not top of everyone's disruptor list. Dettol, but they are. They are a new entrant into the top 75 this year, right? Amazing. And they are continuing their journey from medical disinfectants to family germ care. We heard Jamie talk about the power of storytelling, didn't we, earlier? They've taken what was a very functional, kind of efficacy-driven category, and they've used the power of human storytelling. Their Spread Love, Not Germs platform has been a huge global success. And in the UK, their genius partnership with Channel 4 and Gogglebox meant that they were the first ads to ever feature on Gogglebox. And we saw our nation's favourite TV viewers watching the ads and telling us what they thought. I can't play it all, but I'm going to just show you a little bit.
You act like a pig round here.
Oh no! 5-second rule.
My windows are all blathered at home. If it's not from the kids, it's from the dogs.
That's the best way to eat pasta.
That's the only way to eat pasta.
That is definitely my household. Have they given up on knives and forks, Mary, these kids?
Does that trigger you when kids run their hand along stuff outside? Escalator handles and... I caught Bessie putting a door handle in her mouth.
Why do kids do that? They go...
It's just extraordinary how many germs there are in the typical house now that you see this.
The people we love spreading germs.
Oh, that's such a true statement, that is.
Yeah.
The most germy people I know are the ones I love the most.
But we've got you.
We buy the Dettol so they can have fun.
I would say, Dettol that floor. I'm going to Dettol my handles. Oh, Dettol that.
Dettol, spread the love, not the germs.
There we go. So we've talked a lot, haven't we, about disruption. What about consistency? I'm going to spend the rest of the time just touching on that, okay? Now, you'd think, wouldn't you, that, well, we'd be pretty good at consistency. We're not, disruption's not really our strength, but we like things to be the same in Britain. So, yes, we've got lots of heritage brands in our UK Top 75. These are just a flavour of them, right? So, we like enduring. We like kind of things that are timeless. We don't like change. So yes, the impact of consistency on overall brand value is having a bigger payoff in the UK. We saw that globally, right, more consistent brands had a growth advantage of 111%. In the UK, that's 354%. So consistency is more of a strength for us. But as we've said before, consistency by itself isn't enough. And what we're seeing is that there are some British brands really kind of leaning into their heritage, but dialing up that differentiation through Britishness, which is a great way to kind of reignite some of that kind of timelessness and make it feel more timely. Now, Burberry, by their own admission, have had a tough few years, right? They lost sight of who they were. They kind of abandoned their heritage and their Britishness. The check disappeared, but they're back. Their upwards trajectory is continued via their recent Back to the City campaign, which champions London and all its diverse, multicultural, kind of creative vibes. And who have they got to feature in their latest campaign? Bus Auntie. Who knows who Bus Auntie is? Oh, more of you knew what a mukbang was. So Bus Auntie, mental health nurse from London, rose to fame accidentally through sharing her joyful viral videos of her just riding around on a London bus, just living life or sliving or whatever, right? So Burberry invited her, took her in, and she became part of their campaign. And I just love that intersection between kind of the heritage of Burberry and the cultural relevance and timeliness of Bus Auntie and how it really opened them up to a broader audience. But Britishness is a lot more than just London. Any Northerners in the house? And I mean anyone who lives like Watford upwards. Yeah. So, let's talk about Yorkshire tea, right? Last proper example, because they have managed to take regional Britishness, so the Yorkshire values, the no-nonsense, the genuine warmth, and they've scaled it, and they've essentially sold Yorkshire to the Southerners like me. Yeah, and they've done that by not investing in, or not kind of pandering to short-term tactics, promotions. They have invested consistently in brand building over 7 years with their Where Everything's Done Proper platform. And it's paid off. Because what we can see here is that whilst Tetley are in the UK top 75, and they are the bigger brand, and they are also cheaper, Yorkshire Tea have maintained their premium. They are a premium brand, they are more expensive, but they have higher pricing power. So they are better able to justify their price than the cheaper brand. And that is the power of brand building. And we've also seen their market share increase exponentially in the UK. This is in black tea, whereas Tetley's has declined. So, brand building is not a myth, it works. And to sum it all up, really, I'm going to let the world's coolest man do it, right? Samuel L. Jackson, in this latest ad for Adidas Superstars. I love it.
Clocks. Most unbothered things in the world. They don't rush, they don't skip ahead. They just wait and watch everything come back around.
That's Sam Jackson talking.
Shh. That's the difference between the timely and the timeless. Most things just come around once, but the timeless stays always there.
Hello?
Missy, what's up?
Where you at, superstar?
And I'm in some
white room, a bunch of lights, people staring at me.
Fashion changes, style returns. Timeless? Now that's forever. Icons don't follow time. They set it.
I do think my Adidas addiction did contribute to them being a re-entry into the global top 100, but they can thank me later. So what I really took from that is that icons don't follow time, they set it. So if we learn one thing today, it's be that timeless clock, but set your alarm a few minutes early so that you can beat everybody else out the door. And that's really what this session has been all about. So as we finish, right, the 3 lessons that you guys can learn as owners of British brands, and also some of you will own global brands, so you can celebrate later. It's about finding your difference. What's the thing that makes you stand out? That's going to be what drives your future growth and allows you to command a higher price point. It's your clarity, it's what makes you recognizable. Disrupt, and then do it again and again and again and again. Don't stop. And it's not just about innovation. New audiences, new routes to market, new platforms, new messaging, anything that pushes those boundaries. And then the last point is the C word. We've heard it mentioned lots today, right? Culture. You've got to lean into culture. It is a way to kind of, become timely, but also reignite your timelessness. And British heritage is a great way to do that if you want to tap into Britishness and those evolving expressions. But you can also tap into cultural conversations, social media trends, anything that makes you feel relevant at the moment. And yeah, that's it. Come and talk to us later.